I'm joined now by the former governor of Alaska and Republican vice president nominee, Sarah Palin. Great to see you. And I know this might seem like old hat because it's a few days ago now, the debate, but people still mulling it over. So let's just start with your thoughts on how it went, especially for Trump.
Yes, thank you so much, Rosanna. And I really appreciate you having me on because it seems like a lot of the mainstream media here in the U.S., they don't want to hear a whole lot of truth telling. They don't want someone who's going to be candid and blunt and calls it like they see it, which I will do. So thank you for having me on. Yes, it's hard to even define what that show was the other night as a debate, because traditionally a debate is where moderators are unbiased and they let both parties speak and articulate their vision, their idea, their experience. And we didn't see that the other night. So again, hard to define it as a debate. Really, it was a 3-on-1 pre-planned corsage where one candidate, Kamala, she was really touched with kid gloves. And the other candidate, Donald Trump, was held to the fire. A lot of fact checking that turned out to be 2 days later, a lot of untruthful fact checking. So tough for the audience to really be educated on what both candidates' positions are and their vision for this country and for the world.
Well, let me respond by saying thank you for being candid. Thank you for being honest. That's exactly what we do want, and it's why we're speaking to you. And we appreciate that honesty in terms of your views. And I'm going to go into some of the policy points of the contenders for the White House. But in terms of the fact checking, I just want to ask why you think Donald Trump was fact-checked more than Harris. You're claiming here that you felt there was bias from the ABC moderators. Why do you think it happened?
I think it's very obvious over here in the U.S. that our mainstream media is quite liberal, and they would love to see a puppet like Kamala Harris be elected, somebody who is actually controlled not by her own convictions and her own experience and her own vision for this country and for the world, but for globalists, really not just socialists, but communists who want to control the people. And Kamala Harris is willing to be that person, as Joe Biden had been that person for a bit there. And Donald Trump, well, he's much more independent, and he has proven that he is for the people. He wants to be elected by the people. Nobody owns him. Nobody's going to control him. And that's why the mainstream media has such a problem with a lot of conservatives and independents, including Donald Trump. So the moderators, the network that hosted that quote unquote debate, it's pretty obvious why it is that they would like to see Kamala Harris elected. And as I say, Rosanna, we're going beyond socialism even here with the positions that are being taken by Kamala Harris and by those who are controlling her and her message. And we're going to head into communism here in America if things don't go the right way in this upcoming election.
Well, you've said so many things there I want to ask you about. So let's talk about the puppet idea, or what you're asserting is reality there of Harris being the puppet and being controlled from behind by people with a globalist agenda, a socialist agenda, a communist agenda. If that is the case, when did that start happening, do you think, in the White House?
Well, I think for decades there have been the uniparty, the globalists who want to control the people and take away individual rights. But it's being really made manifest much more aggressively and clearly as of late with a candidate like Kamala, who, remember, she has never won a primary. She's never had to really show her mettle and show what it is as convictions, internal convictions about what she believes in, about what she has done via her experience, her background, to put her in a position of being educated and informed and prepared to be the leader of the free world. She hasn't had to do any of that. So she's been a convenient pick for the globalists who do want to control the people. She's been a convenient mouthpiece for them as of late. So it's really been more aggressive and more clear just in the last couple of years.
I'll come back to the globalist piece because I think it's particularly interesting when we think about foreign policy, which you have a big career in. So I will come back to that. But I also want to pick up on the point that you described Donald Trump there just previously as an independent within the realm of conservatives. Talk to me about that. Do you consider him to be sort of outside the Republican Party almost, even though he is running as a Republican contender?
Yes, and that's a really good question. Once in a while, I'm asked that question also as how I can be a Republican and yet be so far removed from the Republican establishment, the mechanisms, the machine that actually runs the Republican Party nationally, and in my case, in the state of Alaska. Where people are so obsessed with partisanship and with labels and with positions within the party that they let partisanship get in the way of just doing what's right for the people. Well, Donald Trump has never been a part of that. Remember, he had been a Democrat for many years and quite independent, but recognized that it's the Republican platform that is best for America in order for our ability to perpetuate the blessings that we have today. We don't want to lose those for generations to come. So it's the Republican platform that is best, that makes the most sense for the people. So Donald Trump recognized that, jumps on board in the Republican Party, and has gone forth. So he does butt heads, as do I, with many in the Republican Party. And that, by definition, would make us much more independent. We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us. We can just do what's right via the Constitution, that blueprint towards a more perfect union. We get to follow that with that internal conviction that what we're doing is right for the people.
And should you be operating under a different label then, or amongst a different party? You're saying we then, so I assume you mean people like yourself. You've clearly publicly endorsed Donald Trump for both election campaigns, for all of his election campaigns. I mean, I'm talking here about Republicans turning against Trump, the Cheneys most notably in recent days, former Vice President Dick Cheney, his daughter, as well as many other influential Republicans. So what are we seeing here? Is there even a Republican Party as we recognize it anymore?
Another good question, Rosanna, because there was a lot of talk about the need for a third party, for more independent Americans who traditionally perhaps had been registered as Democrats or Republicans, but are just sick of the partisanship getting in the way of just doing what's right and allowing people to have freedom and government trusting the people to make their own decisions. We make decisions better than faceless, nameless bureaucrats in some far-off bubble in Washington, D.C. They need to trust the people. So quite often, neither party represents that. Certainly the Democrats do not represent that. They're very blatant and bold now about taking away individual rights and freedom from Americans. At least the Republican Party, our platform, still sticks to that conviction. But that's a good question because there is a lot of talk about the need for a third party, more independent. Now, you mentioned a few of the high-profile Republicans who aren't supporting Donald Trump. Recently, the Drudge Report came out with a headline saying, Palin, I am the only living GOP nominee for the higher office to be supporting Trump. And I look back and I thought, well, they're right. Well, these others who aren't supporting Donald Trump, when you look back at their history and what it is they really stand for, they didn't necessarily stand on the planks in the Republican platform. I do. And that's why it's been easy for me to endorse, to support the one candidate who remembers what being an American is all about and the freedom that we cherish. So you point that out, and that's very accurate that no, some high profile Republicans, they don't support Donald Trump, but that's okay because there are a whole lot of independents, many Democrats leaving their party, knowing that, well, essentially it's the Democrat Party who have left them, and they're just seeking that freedom, that experience that's needed to be the leader of the free world, and they see that in Donald Trump.
A lot of the Republicans that have turned away the more traditional GOP party members in the last few months have talked about Trump's rhetoric, turning them off, basically. They can't get behind a man who says quite sensationalist things. That's no secret. He's been doing it for years. Let's talk about what he said in the debate, for example. I know you're probably sick to death of hearing it. It's been all the headlines. But residents of Springfield having their cats and dogs eaten by immigrants, that was the big takeaway line. Was it a distraction that he said that away from immigration policy?
No, because this morning there are reports of Haitian immigrants and illegal immigrants who culturally it's okay for them to eat a cat or a dog. And they're seeing reports now that are proving that Trump wouldn't have said that had he not known that there were some facts there but behind that quote unquote rhetoric. It wasn't rhetoric, it was a fact. But what we refer to over here, Rosanna, when people talk about that Trump rhetoric, you know, we like to kind of the running joke, the verbiage we use is, well, those mean tweets of Donald Trump. You know what? I'll take a mean tweet over a failed policy, the control of the people, all those parts of that globalist uniparty agenda that Kamala Harris represents. I'll take a mean tweet over that any day. Now, in the debate, yeah, there is some talk now about, oh, Trump had some rhetoric here or there that some people maybe felt uncomfortable hearing. I felt uncomfortable hearing the lies coming from Kamala Harris. She said lie after lie, and she was not held to account. And that's a shame because the people here, we want to do our own homework. We want to have information so that we can, to the best of our ability, know who it is who is offering themselves up in the name of service. So we do have the best leader that we can elect. Now, Kamala Harris, you've probably seen the bullet points of all the lies that she spewed. She said, just recently, she's against fracking. She's against that resource development that we need to be energy independent in America. And then in the debate, you know, she denies that. She said, oh, there's no state in America that is conducting abortions up until birth. Yeah, there are. There are 6 or 7 states that allow 0 gestational age to be considered with abortion. So she lied on that. She lied about the unvetted illegal aliens coming over our border, our open border, and how that adversely affects our economies, our culture. She lied about her role in that. So it's been lie after lie. I would rather hear a mean tweet, again, over a lie being spewed from a candidate.
Back in 2011, you said it's time that a woman is president of the United States of America. Of course, you had your own run at high office. You were governor of Alaska. You've held many high positions, but the US still hasn't had a woman as president. It's clear you don't think Harris is that woman.
No, doggone it. You know, I do. I would love to see a woman president in the U.S., and it can't be Kamala Harris. No, she's ill-equipped. She's not qualified and very ill-prepared. So no, she should not be our first female president. And that's what I mean when I refer to the debate, quote unquote, debate the other night, where one candidate was touched with kid gloves, and the other one, there was harsher treatment of him. Unfortunately, it was the female candidate whom I believe people thought, oh, you know, you got to kind of back off, don't hold her to account, be nice to her, because unfortunately, you know, she likes to play the victim, even when it comes to gender. And that's unfortunate. I want a strong woman. Americans want a strong woman if we're going to have one as the first female president, someone who is experienced, someone who understands the administrative role that is the presidency, and someone who is just bound by that Constitution and will stick to it and not let other people tell her what to do if it goes against our Constitution. That's not Kamala Harris.
Can you see any of those women in the Republican Party? Why haven't those contenders been put up for election?
Well, I think now is the time for more female candidates to really rise up, if you will, and allow what it is that they have done via experience and their vision for our country to be articulated and to be understood. Now is the time for female candidates all over the world, I wish. You know, I hope that perspective that perhaps a female could bring to the office of presidency or any of these other high offices. And you know, I look forward to that time because Americans are ready for that. People like me, where we've grown up in a place here in Alaska, Rosanna, where gender isn't an issue. You know, the females, the women, the girls, we're expected to work as hard as the guys. We're expected to provide for our families, literally, even practically speaking, like, because we live off the grid quite often. We get kicked off the grid. So making sure that we have energy supplies ourselves, the women do it, making sure that we can harvest our own protein to feed our own families. It hasn't been like a man's role to do that. It's been, hey, anybody willing to do it in order to survive in less than ideal conditions, you got to do it. So I'm fortunate that I have grown up in a family, in a community, in a state where gender hasn't been an issue.
Look, Sarah Palin, you've been very generous with your answers. It's been great speaking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.